Next, we have Michael Fidler. Michael is with the UHD Alliance. Actually, I believe you're the president of the UHD Alliance, and that's an industry trade organization that tries to get some standards going among manufacturers of displays, mostly consumer displays, I believe. They have a new project that I'm a big supporter of. It's called Filmmaker Mode.
I wanted to take you through a project that the UHD Alliance has been working on now for about a year and a half. And we'll go through how it started, what it encompasses, and what we expect or anticipate to be the end result in terms of how that creative process, once it's completed, brought to the cinema, how is it now brought into the home? So that's about making sure that we can deliver creative intent. The Alliance itself is about 40 member companies. They're all part of the UHD ecosystem. So we have CE manufacturers, Hollywood studios, technology companies, streaming companies, that all kind of are working towards making sure consumers understand the benefit and value of the UHD format. We've previously developed specifications for performance for both Ultra HD Premium, so display devices, as well as the content and content mastering requirements, as well as distribution, as well as for mobile devices. And that's been in the market for about 3 years now. So this is the newest initiative from the organization. What started out literally about 18 months ago was a request that came from some very much leading and acclaimed filmmakers about the possibility of working with a trade organization that is an unbiased organization. The goal of our organization and our mission was to make sure that we could deliver a premium experience to consumers and retain creative intent. That's when the mission started about 5 years ago. And this was trying to make sure that we could take the requests that came from the filmmakers themselves. Of course, as James mentioned, typically they experience the same things when they see their films at home, when they see it at friends' houses, when they see it wherever they go. It doesn't look the same way they saw it in the grading suite. And that was the big request they made of us, is how can we collaborate and try and bring that kind of technology into the consumer marketplace. Now, of course, with the membership that we have and the ecosystem that we've developed, we had all of the folks that are really bringing technology into the home available. And it was a matter of really defining what the needs were and then trying to find a way to execute that. The first thing we did, and some of you might have taken part in this, was develop a survey to just try to get a sense from the creative community itself as to what was the most important things that they needed to see or would like to see when their products were delivered into the home. And this was both the way of not just creating that, but also making it simple for consumers. And this was a broad cross-section of the creative industry. Obviously, directors involved, cinematographers, editors, colorists, VFX. So it was a broad representation. And what we found out, of course, as you might imagine, that 96% of them felt either somewhat or that it was most important to make sure that we could deliver that creative intent in the home. We then took that conceptually to the consumers and said, if this was available in a TV set, would this motivate you to buy it? And there was a very clear kind of requirement from the consumer side that, yes, if it was there, 88% of us would indeed buy that TV over another TV that didn't have that mode, and 94% among 4K customers. So very, very high response from the consumer, very highly predisposed to this opportunity to see the movies the way the director intended. So what we developed, literally in collaboration with the filmmakers themselves, with the CE manufacturers, the device manufacturers, Hollywood studios, was Filmmaker Mode. And this was obviously something that they've been looking for many, many years. They tried to do this when HD first came out. and there wasn't enough collaboration or opportunity or an organization that was able to kind of bring all of those resources together and deliver that to the market. They also wanted to make sure that it was easy for consumers. That was really a critical element of this. For those that own TVs out there, most consumers take their TVs home, take it out of the box, and never change the settings. And that typically is about 70 to 80% of the time. They leave it in the setting that it was set in default from the TV manufacturer. So it was very important to make sure we had a way to make it either automatically activated through metadata, or it could be done through just a simple button on a remote control. And it was very important that there was one single name. For most of you that own maybe different brands, everybody's got their own names. It's Cinema Pro or Cinema Movie, very complicated for consumers. So we wanted to stay with one name, one brand that would go across all of the multiple manufacturers that ultimately would support this, and that's Filmmaker Mode. So here's a few comments from our filmmakers.
Filmmaker Mode is a mode in which we can ensure that the original intent of the filmmaker, the technical aspects of the film, and the way in which we finished the film in the edit suite, in the color timing room, gets to the viewer the way that we intended. Modern televisions have all kinds of incredible possibilities in terms of their technical capabilities, but that also means that we need to be sure that the original intent of the filmmaker is carried through to the presentation in the home. And Filmmaker Mode is a way of doing that.
The Film Foundation was created to restore and preserve classic films as they were intended to be seen. Most people today are watching these classic films at home rather than in movie theaters. Filmmaker Mode is of particular importance when presenting these films, which have specifications unique to being shot on film, on celluloid, including, the size of the frame, their aspect ratios, their approach to light and shadow, to color or black and white, many different things, in each case absolutely unique to the given film. Filmmaker Mode is a long overdue and welcome innovation.
I think that I care deeply about how cinema is experienced at home and in the ancillary markets, because that's where it lives the longest. That's where cinema is watched and rewatched and experienced with your families and in comfortable settings. That's kind of where the memories are developed. I think the viewer should care about Filmmaker Mode because it gives the viewer another choice. If they're consuming this piece of art, why not give them the choice of being able to say, okay, this is how the artists themselves wanted it to be seen. This was the intention.
As filmmakers, we live, eat, and breathe our movies. We live and die for our movies. We put a lot of thought into them. We make 1,000 decisions a day, literally, about the sound, the color, the light, the shadow, the performance, the emotion. That's what we do. And that's what makes the movie what it is. I think that it would be incumbent on all the people who make the devices that get the movie out there in so many different forms, so many different sizes, so many different ways of viewing it, to honor what the filmmaker intended.
With all these advances in these televisions, now is a great time to introduce this. It's just impossible to ignore what the technology can do. And that's kind of preserve the intent, preserve the purpose. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to see this movie on your television how it was meant to be seen.
Hey, I'm J.J. Abrams. Hi, I'm M. Night Shyamalan.
I'm Christopher Nolan.
I'm Ava DuVernay.
Hi, I'm Damien Chazelle.
I'm Ryan Coogler.
I'm Christopher McQuarrie.
I'm Ang Lee.
We're the Duffer Brothers.
I'm Ryan Johnson.
I'm Paul Thomas Anderson.
Hi, I'm Judd Apatow.
I'm Reed Morano.
I'm Martin Scorsese.
I know the world is crazy and there are bigger fish to fry than this, but I gotta say, if you want to see movies as they were intended to be seen,
how all of us intended,
the way it was intended to be seen,
the way it was intended,
to see this movie the way it was intended to be shown,
and the way it was intended to be seen,
you should see them in the way that they were meant to be seen by the people who made the films, by the filmmaker.
Watching it in Filmmaker Mode is the best way to ensure that.
Please watch it in Filmmaker Mode.
In Filmmaker Mode.
Watch it in Filmmaker Mode.
You should watch it in Filmmaker Mode.
Filmmaker Mode.
In Filmmaker Mode.
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 You should use Filmmaker Mode. It's the only way to watch it.
So with that, we actually launched this at the end of August in Hollywood. We had a press event, very, very well attended, and we had Rian Johnson of Star Wars Last Jedi fame actually there. And I think he said something that really resonated, certainly with the audience, as well as importantly with the CE manufacturers that really ultimately are the responsible entities that can take this to heart and understand that this is something that is desired from the creative community. They all like to have differentiation in their products, and part of that differentiation is the kind of modes that they have available. But, you know, as you can see from what Ryan said, he really thanked the manufacturers for taking this step and moving this agenda forward and making sure that creative intent could be delivered in the home. So very, very well received. We had over 1 million hits on this, about 12,000 retweets of the press event, and about 60 to 70 press attended. So it was really spiked interest both domestically as well as internationally, because this is applicable for most of our key markets, which include not only North America, but Europe and Asia. We also wanted to make sure that those attending could get a sense of what this was actually delivering. And so we actually set up a Vizio 4K. They're one of the supportive manufacturers with an out-of-the-box default setting. We used a Sony professional monitor. Most of you probably know what that delivers. And then we had a Vizio TV that's a commercially available TV today with their default setting on it, and ran the same material to see what the differences actually were. And it was really astonishing to see how closely the Filmmaker Mode that was activated on this prototype from Vizio matched this $30,000 color monitor. So it was really the color, the shading, everything was very different than what you saw in that default setting. And it was really remarkable. And we took the press through there, we took the creative talent that was there, and they were all very, very pleased with the results of that. For the initial support from TV manufacturers, we have 3 that raised their hands, including LG, Panasonic, and Vizio, a significant share of the TV display market. They will be announcing product at CES coming up in January, and providing more detailed information about the products and when it would be available. So this is a very exciting time for the actual launch of the product into the marketplace. From a technical specification, I know this is fairly high level. The goal really was not what we're adding, but what we're taking away. And so this applies to both SDR and HDR content. Sets a white point at D65, maintains all of those key elements of frame and aspect ratio and frame rate, turns off motion interpolation completely. So it's not something you have to search on Google to figure out how you as a consumer might be able to do that. Also, overscan only is changed based upon the signal information that's delivered. Sharpening is off. Noise reduction is off, and all other image enhancement is off. So it's really delivering the intent of the filmmakers themselves. As I said earlier, one of the important elements here was to make sure that it was accessible to consumers. We know that they don't go into hierarchical menus. They just don't want to do that. They get confused. There's too many options. So we can do it in one of 2 ways, either with a button on the remote, fairly simple, on or off, or do it through automatic triggering through metadata embedded in the content, both in content like Blu-ray discs or in streamed content either through AVC or HEVC. So this is something that will automatically trigger it when it sees 24 frame. It will go right into filmmaker mode. We will provide a prompting for consumers. So some consumers might say, you know, I really like it in vivid. That's fine, you can do that. But this will allow them to make sure they can understand this is the way the director intended, and to enjoy it from that standpoint. Of course, as we move along the continuum of what other ways we can initiate this change, looking at touchscreen, voice control, as the feature becomes more prominent and visible. So to summarize, this is really the first time that the industry has collaborated with the filmmakers themselves. Of course, we've worked with Hollywood studios in the past. We have always had the opportunity with trade associations to try to bring a unique and single selling proposition into the marketplace, but this is the first time filmmakers have been involved. The Filmmaker Mode obviously is a trademarked name. It does require certification and compliance. We have very specific, and I've identified what that translates to, and manufacturers have to certify that. We also, as we said earlier, disable all post-processing. So it's very clean. It's very much a representation of what the filmmaker intended. And it's available from multiple TV manufacturers without searching through different menus. So it's very much an automatic process. And that's Filmmaker Mode.